Prime Minister addressed the nation from Downing Street yesterday evening in an unexpected and unscheduled statement about the threat of extremism on British democracy. Take a listen.
And it is beyond alarming that last night the Rochdale by-election returned a candidate who dismisses the horror of what happened on October the 7th, who glorifies Hezbollah and is endorsed by Nick Griffin, the racist former leader of the BNP.
Well, old Rishi's not pulling his punches, is he? But was his response about extremism too little, too late? Let's get the views of Britain's best-known political double act, Neil and Christine Hamilton. Neil, are you pleased to see the Prime Minister finally address this issue?
I think it's totally irrelevant. You say he's not pulling his punches. The trouble is he's incapable of punching anything. And he's punching at his level, really, punching at his weight. You know, it's just more and more words. What is he actually going to do about all this political extremism? What's he going to do about the failure of the police to do what the public overwhelmingly wants to take back control of our streets? For the overwhelming proportion of the British public that is not in favour of these demonstrations pro-Palestine week after week after week. The trouble is we've got a weak government which has allowed this problem to fester away for years without doing anything about it. Even now, he has no serious proposals to control the immigration problem of this country. And we're not talking about small boats. We're talking about the 1.4 million residence visas that the government issued last year for foreigners to come and live and work in this country. You know, we've added 6.5 million people to our population since 2010, when David Cameron became Prime Minister. You know, we've had an unprecedented rise in immigration under this current Conservative government. And this is the cause of the problem, ultimately. We are now in a society, because the Muslim population is getting to the stage where there's a tipping point, where they reach a position where, you know, their vote really, really matters in an election. I mean, George Galloway got 40% of the vote in Rochdale on a 38% poll. Gross that up to general election levels. That in itself is 20 or 25% of the electorate of Rochdale. And there are many, many towns around the country like this. I mean, only 36% of the people who live in London, the whole of London, in the last census, designated themselves as white British. You know, and we have communities living side by side with one another that don't want to assimilate. And this is going to get worse in the years to come. So I want to know, what is the Prime Minister actually going to do about it? We heard warm words last night. We had no single proposal to do anything at all.
Although, Neil, you can't say that those coming to this country, legal net migration, you mentioned the figures, we can debate the scale, but you can't say that all of those people are extremists, and you can't say that all British Muslims are extremists.
No, of course not. And I don't say that at all. But we have no idea who these people are coming to this country. We don't know what their motivations are. And we know that there is a significant number of extremists who are on the MI5 watch list, about 50,000 or so of Muslim extremists on the MI5 watch list. And if we don't know who's coming to this country, whether they're legal or illegal, this is a problem which is only going to increase. And if people are going to start voting on lines of their personal identity rather than on their political ideology, this is a problem which is going to become worse in the British political system.
Well, I tend to agree that if the outcome of a by-election is based upon a war happening several thousand miles away, that is a problem for our democracy, isn't it?
It is. I mean, 72% of Muslims in the last general election, 2019, voted Labour. So Labour is overwhelmingly dependent upon the votes of migrant communities. So the Labour Party will quietly become the spokesman for all these different ethnic groups. Well, what I'm interested in is the majority of this country who aren't going to identify themselves by the colour of their skin or their religion or whatever, but people who think themselves as British and whose values are what we think as traditional British values, and are going to identify with the United Kingdom and its interests rather than the interests of the countries or cultures from which they've come.
Well, indeed, of course, you know, we have an ethnic population. Many are successfully integrated in the country. But as you say, with the Prime Minister's warning about extremism, not all. Christine, is the genie now out of the bottle? I don't know how you could ever police those so-called peace marches every weekend. The cops are outnumbered.
Yeah, the genie is undoubtedly out of the bottle. And when I saw Rishi Sunak, and we weren't able to watch it live, but when I caught up with what Rishi Sunak said on the steps of Downing Street, I had the air that he was like Sleeping Beauty. Where's he been for the last 100 years? He's been asleep. Has he not noticed when I say 100 years, I mean his watch. Has he not noticed what happened on his watch? It's as though he's suddenly woken up to this awful reality which is facing this country. And after the next election, assuming things go according to the way we think they're all going to go, there will be a very large number, and it's not possible, maybe a psephologist could, but it's not really possible to put a number on. And Neil's just alluded to this. There will be a very large number of MPs on the Labour side whose loyalty is not to this country. It's not even to their constituents. I mean, what were George Galloway's first words? This is for Gaza. I'm sorry, but Rochdale really is a very poor part of this country, and it needs an MP who's going to say this is for Rochdale, not for Gaza. But there are going to be a large number of MPs whose loyalty is not to this country, it is to their country of origin, or it is to their religion. And that, to me, is a very, very lamentable state of affairs for us to find ourselves in. And it seems that Rishi Sunak has just woken up, but it's too late.
Of course, too late. I'm glad you've called Rishi Sunak the Sleeping Beauty, although I doubt you'd want to give him a kiss. It's worth stressing that... Yeah, go on.
I was trying to think, while Neil was talking, I was trying to think of somebody else, not sleeping and beauty, who'd been asleep for 100 years, but I couldn't. So
I think it wasn't a bad one. If we're doing Disney characters, Christine, I wonder if Rishi is Dumbo instead. Listen, let me say that Labour MPs would contend, and Labour themselves would absolutely strongly argue that all of their candidates are focused on the needs of their constituents and the country first. But of course, you're entitled to your view. Let's talk about this other story, if we can. Following allegations that he sent flirtatious texts to a colleague, Red Bull Formula One boss Christian Horner appeared at the Grand Prix today, and in a very public display of affection, his wife, Spice Girl Geri Halliwell, gave him a big old kiss. So, great news. Look at that. That reminds you of your wedding night, doesn't it, Neil?
I could recapitulate that on GB News Live.
Listen, let's bring my top pundits into this as well. I'm delighted that with us tonight we have Benedict Spence, Rebecca Jane and Lisa McKenzie alongside the Hamiltons. First of all, you, Christine. Yeah, so essentially, Christian Horner denies the allegations. He's been cleared in an inquiry, so he's been found not guilty. But the rumours are that he sent texts to a female colleague. Is Geri Halliwell right to stand by her man?
If she believes in him, of course she is. I mean, what the heck is love for if it isn't standing by your man? I have no idea. Unlike apparently the vast majority of people, I have not seen these texts on social media. I've been too busy recently. So I don't know what exactly was said. It's between him and her. And if they've got something worth saving, it should be able to survive a few texts, frankly. So good for Geri Halliwell. And I hope she does stand by him. And I hope their marriage survives, because she obviously believes in him. Otherwise, she wouldn't be there now. She wouldn't have gone out. She would have turned around and come home. So, of course, I hope it survives. Yes, I mean, love is a very delicate thing, and it can be broken. And the trust, this is the trouble, the trust can be broken in an instant. And I hope they can make it through this. I really do.
I hope so too. Rebecca Jane, is Geri Halliwell right to stand by her man? Were you convinced by that public display of affection?
No, I was not convinced by that public display of affection. I thought it was probably the most embarrassing thing I've seen in a long time. Yesterday he's publicly humiliating her, and today she stood at his side kissing him on the cheek. I have no respect for people that are not authentic, and if you can't tell me after the messages that came out yesterday that she's blissfully happy with the smirk on her face, then blow me down with a feather. It's an absolute load of nonsense. From the queen of girl power, she has made an absolute embarrassment of herself. I don't think, however, that she should not stand by him. I think that that's fine. I think that the public display of nonsensical, inauthentic affection today is the problem.
Lisa McKenzie, Christian Horner is not Christian Horny, according to his own statement. He denies the allegations. What do you think?
I did see some of the text earlier, actually, when I sat in the green room, and they didn't look very steamy to me, actually. They looked a bit rubbish. And I just thought, well, perhaps he should do better. If she's got 8 million reasons to stay, then, good luck to her, because they weren't that, they didn't appear to be. Apparently there's something about, can you do a backflip?
Yeah, that's
The splits.
That was it, yeah.
I think that was it. Briefly, Benedict, Christine, I'll give you the last word. Briefly, Benedict, and then Christine.
I mean, Mark, I send lots of people flirty texts. I send you flirty texts. I send producers flirty texts here to try and get on your show. As soon as you give me your number, I'm going to send them. My bank manager, my parish priest. Honestly, what's life without a couple of flirty texts? And honestly, these seemed rather tame. I agree with Lisa. It didn't seem like the sort of thing that you potentially end a marriage over.
Christine, you get the last word.
Well, I say I haven't seen the text, but I really hope this works. Listen, who hasn't made mistakes in their lives, for goodness sake? Is this the first... has Jerry Halliwell never made a mistake? I mean, I really hope this works. I don't know either of them. I don't know any more details than what I've done. Skim reading the newspapers, but I mean, I really hope it works.
Okay.
I don't want... a marriage destroyed because of a few flirty texts.
Last thing. Do you want to give Neil a PDA from us now?
No.
I don't know. It's just happened. Neil went for the rear end. Listen, folks, thank you very much to the Hamiltons. We'll catch up very soon. Fabulous folks that you are.